All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for calling in for our third Thursday training featuring Michael Foutch. We are quite excited to have him. I'm Heidi Garvin from GROW Nebraska, so if you hear my voice kind of chime in here and there, that's who I am. All right. Well, Michael, I will turn it over to you and let you take it away.
Heidi, thanks so much. I sure appreciate the opportunity to address everybody today. I want to thank GROW Nebraska for facilitating this. Let's go ahead and delve right in. If you've got your PowerPoint presentation in front of you, you'll see that the first slide is a picture of our building. It's stylized, so it looks really cool. And this presentation is called Take the Mystery Out of SBA Loans. My name is Michael Foutch. I'm an economic development specialist with the U.S. Small Business Administration. I've been with the agency for 5 years, and part of my job is to talk to small business owners, either current or someone thinking about starting a small business, and letting them know what the SBA does and what we can offer small business owners. So let's go on to slide 2 and discuss Nebraska's small business facts. What is a small business? You know, we've got lots of definitions from lots of people, from some who say it's just a mom and pop place on Main Street, to a small store, and then to a place that grows up to 500 employees, because that's the SBA's definition of any small business that has 500 employees or fewer. And it seems like a lot of employees for just a small business. We don't make the rules here in the Nebraska District Office. They make those rules in Washington, D.C., but that's the definition we've settled on. The important thing is that small businesses play a huge role in Nebraska's economy. You're talking about almost 97% of all employers who employ almost half of the private sector labor force. Women-owned firms are 25% of all small businesses, which sounds pretty impressive until you realize that Nebraska is kind of lagging behind in the industry, in the region, I should say, that Iowa, Kansas, and Missouri have more of the proportion of women-owned businesses in their overall economy than Nebraska does. But we are improving. So it's encouraging to see women starting a small business and making the plunge in the marketplace. 10% of small businesses are owned by veterans. We do have a couple of veteran loan programs out there that we'll explain a little bit later in the presentation. And that good news in Nebraska, and this is above the nationwide average, 70% of the businesses which started in 2010 were still in business 2 years later. Nationwide, that's only about half. For those who want to start a small business in Nebraska, there are a lot of organizations out there to help you start, grow, succeed, and then sustain your business for years to come. Let's go to slide number 2. This is the one in the upper right corner that you'll see Mark Carson of Fat Brain Toys of Gretna, who's making a nationwide and worldwide name for himself, and he got SBA help a few years back. So what does the SBA do for small businesses? Well, we call it the 3 C's: counseling, capital, and contracting. Through our network of resource partners through SCORE, NBDC, and REAP's Women's Business Center, we can help with one-on-one mentoring, pre-business workshops, business plan advice, and much more. We connect business owners with access to capital to start, grow, and succeed by guaranteeing commercial loans through our lenders. And finally, contracting. If you could, as a small business owner, get the customer who is the biggest buyer of goods and services on planet Earth, you'd have the chance to jump right on that. Well, we can connect you with federal government contracting opportunities to help grow your business. Let's go on to the next slide. Just a little bit of bragging right here. In fiscal 2014, we helped Nebraska entrepreneurs get financing through more than 370 loan approvals for $131 million in loans. That's up $8 million from fiscal 13. So when folks come to me or call our office and say, banks just aren't loaning money to small businesses, we can say, yes, they are, and they're doing so with SBA guarantee help. I'll explain a little bit about the SBA guarantee in just a few minutes, but I want to mention that these small businesses not only are starting, but they're growing and hiring people, creating new jobs. 1,500 in fiscal 14 alone. That's in 12 months. 1,500 new jobs from just those small businesses getting SBA financing, and just as importantly, keeping 2,500 jobs in Nebraska. So we'll go on to slide number 5 and talk about what the SBA Guarantee Loan Program is. And at any time, if you'd like to interrupt and get more clarification about the information that I'm putting out, please do so. I'm going to be speeding through a lot of this because we only have a short time, and I definitely want to leave time at the end for question and answers. So the SBA Guarantee Loan Program guarantees the loan for the bank, not the borrower. Our loan program makes sure that banks can diversify their portfolio and go more into small business financing. And the way we do that is to make sure that the risk is mitigated for the bank. Banks are all about risk mitigation. If they can say, hey, making this loan isn't going to bankrupt our bank, we can make sure to have lots of small business loans in our portfolio, they're comfortable with that, it's more likely that you'll be able to get the money. There is no guarantee loan program for borrowers. If you default, you'll have to pay that loan back. Certainly, you'll put the collateral that you'll have in the loan at risk if you can't pay the loan back. But SBA guaranteed loans, by mitigating the risk to the bank, help startups and businesses with little collateral get a longer term on their loan. And while every bank in the state can do business with the SBA, what you want to do is make sure when you call a bank and look for financing for your small business, you'll ask for the commercial loan officer or the small business loan department, and then ask them if they have any experience with SBA financing, because that's going to tell you two things. Number one, they're used to the SBA paperwork and what the federal government requires in our loan guarantee. And number two, if they've worked with the SBA, then you're talking to someone who's familiar and likes working with small businesses in the first place. And that's what you want, a fertile ground and a friendly environment when you go in and talk to that pinstripe suit wearing banker and saying, I want to start a small business. There's two benefits for small business owners, though, who use SBA financing. I've talked about the benefits mitigating the risk to the bank. The benefits to the borrower are this. The interest rate is capped. And in a couple of slides, I'll explain what those interest rates are. So you'll never pay 10 to 18 to 25% even for a small business loan through the SBA. You're looking at something far more reasonable than that. Also, no balloons and no demand feature. You're not going to have a 2 to 3 year teaser rate on an SBA guaranteed loan and then have to pay that balloon payment at the end. SBA loans are fully amortized, which means you have predictable payments on your cash flow. You'll never have to run to the bank every 2 or 3 years instead of running to your business looking to refinance that balloon payment. Also, no demand features. One of the clauses in a commercial loan contract mitigating the risk for the bank is to make sure that the bank can call in that loan at any time if things look risky for the bank. If they've got too many loans on their portfolio to small businesses, they can call in your loan at any time. Well, with an SBA financed loan, that's simply not going to happen. Again, we're back to predictable payments on your cash flow. Even if you have a variable rate loan, at least you'll know, okay, the rates are going up a little bit, I can plan for that. You won't have that shock to your system that you'll have with that balloon payment or that demand feature. Slide number 6 explains the steps that you'll go through when it comes to the Guarantee Loan Program. You'll work with the SBA and our resource partners, that counseling part of the 3 C's, SCORE, the Nebraska Business Development Center, and REAP's Women's Business Center, to develop that strong business plan with financial projections. You'll visit your bank or lending institution next to discuss your financing options. There is no need to come to the SBA first to say pre-approval or to get the SBA guarantee first. That's the cart before the horse. You go to the bank first to discuss your financing options because your lender ultimately will decide whether to seek an SBA guarantee or work with you on a traditional commercial loan. Your lender then will contact the SBA to seek our approval. Not you. You don't need to come to us first and worry about paperwork. That's your lender's responsibility. Because in many cases, your lender may say, we don't need to worry about the SBA and doing all the paperwork that requires. We'll just do it in-house, as they'll say. And if approved by the SBA, the lender will then work with you on loan closing. Now, there is a couple of catches. First and foremost, you will have to pay an upfront fee as a percentage of the SBA guaranteed portion of the loan. The reason why we do that, as I'll explain a little bit later, is we offer the guarantee to the bank out of the fees that all of the business owners pay. So that's how we'll pay our guarantee to the bank and live up to our obligation to make sure that the risk is mitigated for the bank, and ultimately that's why you'll get your money. In slide number 7, what does the SBA look for? If you're wondering, as a small business owner, do I have the good credit? Am I going to have collateral? I'd like to know if there's some kind of way that I find out even before I visit the bank what needs to be done, whether I'm going to be competitive or not, this will tell you. Will the business have enough cash flow to be able to pay back the loan? That is the number one thing that banks look for. They like to turn it into a verb. Will the business cash flow? What they mean by that is, if you have enough revenue from the business just standing on its own 2 feet to pay back the loan, then we can go on to step 2. Does the business plan actually show this? Do your financial projections that you got into your business plan because you worked with SCORE and the Nebraska Business Development Center and the Women's Business Center, does that business plan actually show that? The SBA also would like to have some experience and commitment in the business. Now, we all like to eat, but that doesn't mean we're necessarily all qualified to run a restaurant. We all like to sleep, but that doesn't mean necessarily we can run a hotel. The SBA would like to see 2 years of management expertise and a commitment, that you've worked in managing a restaurant, that you were a shift manager there, that you were a manager at a bike shop and you want to run your own. You've got some experience actually running a business. Now, this isn't a hard and fast rule. If you've had management experience, say, through military service, then what we'll look for is a few months, maybe 6 months to a year, of you actually being a manager. So we can use some of that management experience you gained in the military to help get you through that 2-year requirement. We also want to make sure that you are borrowing enough funds to operate. A lot of folks say, hey, I want to borrow $250,000, I want to borrow $100,000 to actually buy the business. Well, now that you've bought the business, now what? There will always be unexpected expenses, plus it may be a few months before you actually bring in enough revenue. So we want to make sure that your business plan shows that you're asking for a little bit more, some working capital, a line of credit to get you through those tough times until you start becoming a moneymaker. We also want to make sure you have skin in the game, adequate owner equity invested in the business. And a lot of banks want 125% loan to value when it comes to collateral, which means if you're buying a business or a building for $100,000, they're looking for $125,000 worth of collateral. Now, that's not something that the SBA recommends or demands, but for banks who ultimately make the decision whether or not to give you a loan with or without the SBA program, that often is something that they look for. The SBA wants enough collateral to secure the loan, but we won't turn down a deal simply because there isn't enough sufficient collateral to fully secure that loan. We'll take whatever you got, though. Equity in your home, a grand piano, a new Ferrari that you have. Whatever it is, we want to try to get as much collateral on the loan as possible because we'll sell off that collateral and then we'll use the fees from the upfront fees that you'll pay as part of the SBA loan process to make the bank whole in case of a default. Slide number 8, some restrictions can and do apply. I mean, we are the federal government. There is no such thing as a free lunch. If you're looking to use the SBA Guarantee Loan Program on passive investments, such as buying investment properties, buying homes to rent out, or apartment buildings, you won't be able to get SBA financing for that. We want business owners who are in the trenches actually creating jobs, improving the community, improving the economy of the state of Nebraska. So no passive investments. And if you're looking to open a casino or perhaps a convenience store that will have lottery tickets and Keno machines, just keep in mind that you can only have about a third of your revenue come from gambling, which is Keno machines, lottery sales, and what have you. So no casinos. And if you wouldn't feel comfortable taking your mom, your aunt, your grandma to the business, the SBA won't finance those deals. After all, we are responsible stewards of the taxpayer resources. Can't use SBA funds to pay down delinquent taxes. If you're late on your taxes, better be quick about restoring that to make your account current. We're the federal government. We're all about you paying your taxes. Nor can you use SBA financing to pay yourself or to reimburse yourself for savings that you've already used to bootstrap the start of your business. And while you can use SBA's resource partners like SCORE and the Nebraska Business Development Center and the WBC to get your nonprofit going, you won't be able to use SBA financing for that. Our financing programs are reserved only for for-profit businesses. And slide number 9. Now, if you look at slide number 9, there is a lot going on here. You've got boxes, you've got arrows, you've got a blue circle. This is an easy way to distill what our number one loan program is, the Standard 7A, and its sub-programs, the Express programs, are and what the provisions are and what they mean to you. Now, I've explained in the previous slide what you can't use SBA financing for. A standard 7A loan, the slide here explains what you can use it for: expansion, renovation, new construction, to purchase land or buildings, equipment purchases, leaseholder improvements, working capital, debt refinance, or to purchase a franchise. You can use all of those purposes, those projects, you can use a standard 7A for. It's a 25-year term for real estate or construction, 10 years for any other type. The guarantee. Here's where the guarantee comes into play, especially for a lender. The smaller the loan size, the higher the guarantee. Makes kind of sense. If you're talking about big, huge, gigantic loans that the SBA is going to guarantee, well, that's a little bit risky not only for the lender, but for the federal government itself. So we offer an 85% guarantee for loans up to $150,000 and a 75% guarantee from $150,000 all the way up to $5 million. Yes, you can use the SBA Guaranteed Loan Program for up to $5 million. Now, here's the fees. You'll pay between 2% and 3.75% for any loan that's above $150,000. Now, that can be thousands of dollars in upfront fees that you're going to have to pay in addition to anything else that the bank charges. The bank has document fees. They have appraisal fees. They have all sorts of fees. You're going to pay a fee to the federal government for the privilege of having that SBA guarantee. But if you think about it as an insurance premium that you're going to be paying, so that the federal government can actually pay the people who do default, what we do is take the fees from all the businesses that use SBA financing, put it together in this big pot of money, and then as small businesses do fail throughout the country, we can draw upon that pot of money to pay the banks the guarantee that we promised. 85% up to $150,000, 75% from $150,000 up to $5 million. But speaking of those fees, in the upper right-hand corner, until the end of September in 2015, SBA loans are on sale. No upfront fees for loans $150,000 or less. And for small businesses looking to borrow smaller loan amounts, under $150,000, you're talking about savings of $3,000 or so if you're borrowing $150,000. That's a significant savings, especially for startups. And that's good until September of 2015. If you're a veteran, no upfront fees for $350,000 using the SBA Express program, which I'll explain next. And if you're looking to borrow up to $5 million, those fees are half off for anything from $150,000 up to $5 million. So loans are on sale. Now is the time, if you want to start a small business and get financing, to look into getting an SBA loan. Banks often, though, don't use SBA financing, especially small community-based lenders. Why? Because with the federal government, we have a lot of requirements they need to fulfill. That means a lot of paperwork, a lot of extra staff work. And banks often, it's not economically feasible for the small commercial lending department from a lot of community-sized banks to do SBA financing. They might actually lose money on the deal. So we've developed programs for them. If they're a proven SBA lender, that they've made a number of SBA deals under the 7A program in their portfolio, and those loans are performing, in other words, those businesses haven't gone belly up, they can then apply to be an express lender. And in the box in the lower right-hand corner, that's where the SBA Express program comes in. The 7A requires a lot of paperwork and a lot of lead time. You're talking weeks, perhaps even some worst cases, months. With the SBA Express program, it's an expedited process. You can do lines of credit. Some restrictions on debt refinancing, you can use it for that in some cases. The process is speeded up. Instead of weeks or months, in many cases, they file electronically and can get word back from the federal government within minutes, certainly less than 36 hours. That doesn't mean the process is ready to go to closing and you can get your money. Not quite yet. No, what that means is it's expedited. Perhaps the federal government needs other information. But that's the process that banks that have proven themselves as a 7A lender can certainly use. The guarantee is only half. It's only 50% on $350,000 or less, and the rates are a little bit higher. But in exchange for getting your business started quickly, a lot of banks use SBA Express. It's a popular program. Slide number 10. Small businesses represent 82% of the companies in Nebraska exporting goods and services around the world. And they generated almost 24% of all merchandise exports coming out of Nebraska, or $1.5 billion. Most of that business going to Canada, Mexico, China, and Japan, and naturally it's agriculture and agricultural-based products. But we could do more than that. While small businesses generated almost 24% of all the merchandise exports coming out of Nebraska, we could certainly do more, and the SBA is standing by to help you do just that. On slide 11, we list our export loan programs. The Export Working Capital Program helps a small business that is looking to export their goods and services overseas. Now, whether that's financing suppliers' inventory and production of export goods, whether that's standby letters of credit used as a bid or performance bond or payment guarantees, smoothing out those long payment cycles. Because if you're exporting to countries like Pakistan or Mexico or Asia, Japan, Korea, it could be weeks, maybe months, before you actually get paid. Well, that's a lot to ask for a small business in Nebraska to do accounts receivable for 120, 180 days. That's where the Export Working Capital Program can come into play. You're talking about something that offers a 90% guarantee to a bank for loans up to $5 million. Now, the same deal applies. No upfront fees for loans $150,000 or less, but the Export Working Capital can actually get you that financing you need so that your small business can build its capacity to do export work. The Export Express loan, the second loan listed on this slide. If you wanted to export to China because you're a cabinet maker, or perhaps you make some authentic Nebraska goods that a lot of companies who are part of GROW Nebraska actually do, if they wanted to fly to China, meet up with a consultant in China, or go to a trade show, meet someone who could put those goods into a store in China where the consumers in China could buy and meet the demand that they have for authentic Nebraska products. And believe it or not, that actually does exist as much as Americans want authentic Japanese, Korean, Chinese, German, what have you. There are people around the world who want authentic Nebraska. That trip over to China, you can use an Export Express loan to translate your products, your marketing products, your brochures into Mandarin or Cantonese. Meet up with a consultant, hire that consultant, get those products in those stores. You can get a loan to actually do that because people don't often have the money just sitting around in their mattress or their savings account to finance the thousands of dollars that it would take to actually do that. With an Export Express loan, you can go to a bank and get that financing to go ahead and make that trip happen and begin exporting. The only caveat on the Export Express is that you have to be in business at least for a year, although not necessarily in exporting. So this is something that once you do get in business, if you haven't started yet, or if you are in business now, that you can look into to expand your product offerings around the world. The next slide, slide number 12, is I mentioned the government contracting earlier in this presentation. The biggest buyer of goods and services around the world is the U.S. federal government. If you're interested in accessing that, we not only have help to get you connected with the folks who can teach you how to do that, but we have a loan program that can help finance growing the capacity of your small business to go ahead and get going and actually doing this. If you're a small business that wants to win a contract, you can go through our Procurement Technical Assistance Center through NBDC and get started with that. Once you win that contract as a sub or a prime, you can go to a bank, take that contract. You're talking about the sheets of paper that is that contract. Go to the bank and use that contract as collateral to get $5 million in financing in working capital to perform that contract work. Let me repeat myself. You can actually use a signed contract, a purchase agreement, or receivables. That's paper. That's paper that you're going to a bank. That's not your house. That's not property or real estate. That's paper that you're going to a bank and saying, listen, I want up to $5 million in working capital to perform a contract. It's called cap lines, and it's an excellent way for a small business looking to do contract work with the federal, state, or city government or large developers. The fees are down on that slide, 2 to 3.75%, and of course they're suspended for loans under $150,000, but it's a way to build the capacity that you have in your small business to do contract work so you don't have to turn this opportunity down. Slide number 13 explains the 504 loan program. If you're looking to buy commercial real estate, or if you're renting right now and you'd like to buy, or build something from the ground up, this is an excellent program to use because it provides long-term fixed-rate financing for large equipment and real estate. You'll make a 10 to 20% down payment, which for commercial real estate, if you know anything about that, is fairly ridiculous in this economic climate. To have possibly a 10% down payment if you're an existing business and whether the building is multi-purpose is amazing to do. This is a program that banks like using because unlike the 7A Express, Export Express, or cap lines, the bank gets first lien position on any available collateral. Well, what does this mean? Well, let me break it down. The lender will be responsible for 50% of the financing of the project. If they get first lien position on your collateral, that means your building, your property, your heavy equipment, your real estate can lose half of its value in the marketplace. Your business goes bust, the bank can sell off that property, and they're fine. That means the government gets nothing out of that collateral. Banks really like that because talk about mitigating your risk in commercial property. That's something that is very risky right now for bankers, is buying for small businesses, is buying commercial property. So if we can mitigate that risk even further with the 504 loan program, if you want to build a building, a multi-purpose building, or have a developer build you custom, you can make a 10 to 20% down payment, get your building, and go ahead and begin operating. It's a fantastic deal for small businesses looking to have a place of their own. Now, slide number 14 is different. Okay, Mr. SBA guy, I'm not looking for building a building. I'm not looking for $5 million in financing. Shoot, I'd just like a few $1,000s, maybe $10, $20, up to $50,000. But every time I go to a bank, I get turned down. They say, your credit isn't that great, or you don't have a lot of collateral, or you want a longer term in that loan than we're comfortable, or maybe your credit isn't up to par. Because, yes, banks do a credit check. If you're looking for a commercial loan, a small business loan, they're going to do a credit check on you because you're the president and CEO of your small business. You're the one who's going to be signing that loan paper. Well, if you've been turned down from a bank for whatever reason, take that rejection letter to one of our participating community-focused nonprofits who offer SBA loans for startups and existing businesses up to $50,000. The SBA loans places like the Rural Enterprise Assistance Project, Community Development Resources. Here in Omaha, the Omaha Small Business Network. We loan them a big pot of money. In turn, we instruct them to make loans to small business owners. As a small business owner gets a microloan and pays that loan back, that means someone else in the community can use a microloan and start a small business of their own. So you'll pay a higher interest than a bank loan, but it makes sense. If you've been turned down from a bank, there's probably a few dings to your credit or your application, so you'll probably pay a little higher interest loan. You're going to get a credit check, and you're going to have to pledge collateral. But in many cases, if you've been turned down from a bank, the microloan program is the solution that you're going to have to actually be able to start your small business. So as we wrap things up, I've got a few takeaways for you. There are federally backed guarantee loans for small businesses, as we explain on slide 15. The SBA guarantee for loans up to $5 million through the 7A program. Larger projects, sometimes up to $13 million with a 504 loan. Now, you can use this financing to start a business, purchase an existing one, tackle contract work, export your goods and services. And again, if you've been turned down by a commercial lender, microloans could be available up to $50,000. But what you want to do first is start with our resource partners, SCORE, to put together your business plan, follow up with NBDC and REAP's Women's Business Center, offering training and mentoring to make sure that you can put your financial projections in order before you go to a bank and have the training that you need to go ahead and be a success once you start your business, and then sustain that success once you continue your small business. So don't let this be the end of the conversation. And the last slide in the presentation has my contact information. Again, my name is Michael Foutch, an Economic Development Specialist with the Small Business Administration. My email address is on that slide, michael.fouch@sba.gov, and my phone number is 402-221-7211. That concludes the formal part of the presentation. What I'd like to do now is, if you have any questions, I'd like to open it up for that. Nobody has any questions. Okay, here we go.
Okay. Actually, the question that I had foremost, you answered on your last slide. I was looking for someone to help write a business plan or get some information on a template to work with to formulate a business plan. I've seen business plans before. I've read them before. It's just been a long time, so I just need a little help getting started again.
2 solutions for you. In your own time, you can visit the SBA's website at sba.gov.gov. We do have business plans and training on how to put a business plan together, self-paced classes that you can get a good idea of what actually goes into a business plan, the scaffolding, if you will, that you'll construct your plan around. And then the second thing is, I recommend everyone make an appointment with SCORE. We've got an office all across the state. We've got them in Lincoln. We've got them in Omaha. If you go to the SBA website, there's a place where you can punch in your zip code to find out the SCORE office closest to you. In Omaha, it's 402-221-3606, and there is a SCORE office in Lincoln that works with Southeast Community College.
They're actually in the same building as GROW Nebraska, so if you come to visit them, make sure you drop by my office.
Absolutely. The SCORE office in Lincoln is 402-437-2409. And as Heidi just said, GROW Nebraska has been a partner with the SBA when it comes to entrepreneurship, with training classes. They're very good when it comes to offering classes in social media. In fact, I think they set the standard when it comes to using things like Facebook, Twitter, Vimeo, Hootsuite, when it comes to actually getting marketing for your small business and using those free tools that are out there.
Yes. Which reminds me, if any of you have any questions about marketing for your small business, specifically marketing and technology, we are going to be having our Market Tech Conference in Kearney, Nebraska. Make sure you mark your calendars. It's April 22nd. It's going to be at the Holiday Inn, and it's featuring Chris Russell from Google. We're going to have Jill Lillendahl from sitandstay.com. and Paul Urich from Expansion. So if you have any questions on those topics, make sure you attend.
Any other questions we can answer?
That'll be perfect.
If there are any questions that you have that you couldn't think of, because I've thrown a lot of information at you, again, my phone number is 402-221-7211. That's 221-7211. Go ahead and call at any time. That's what we're here for, is to answer questions from prospective small business owners.
There is one question I have that may be too specific. Part of what I'm looking at is kind of a niche market into marketing to Middle Eastern and Hispanic communities. What do I want to say? They eat a lot of goats, or they use a lot of goat for their celebratory holidays and Christmas and things. I don't know if there's that big a market around Lincoln, Nebraska, or southeast Nebraska. I was thinking more Kansas City, Minneapolis. I know that Minneapolis has huge pockets of kind of ethnic communities where we've gone and had fantastic meals from different groups around the world. It's really quite a place up there. My daughter lives up there. And that's part of the reason why I was thinking of marketing to Minneapolis. While it seems a long ways away, it's an excuse to visit my daughter.
Well, sure. Well, if you look at slide 14 of the presentation about the slide with the microloan program, on the left-hand side is the Schlevo family. They market Bosnian and ethnic Serbo-Croatian meats in the Lincoln area, and they are doing very well in business. They also market to the Bosnian community in St. Louis. So if they can succeed in a very, very narrow market, I would say your idea probably would too. I think what you want to do is make sure that you stop by SCORE and the Nebraska Business Development Center to put your business plan together. And when you do that, as you're putting that together, they'll give you homework. You know, who are you going to sell to? That's when you need to get out there and find out what's the size of the community. How will you market to them? What avenues are there? Are there newspapers that cater specifically to the community? Are there trade shows and things like Cinco de Mayo and things like that for the South Omaha community where you could set up a booth and offer free samples? This is when you really want to start getting creative, and then put that in your business plan. Because I think as you start putting together your business plan, just the act of doing that, you're going to find out, oh, there's this that I didn't think of. Oh, let's do that. Or maybe this isn't going to work out. So once you start doing this research, you're going to find yourself really far along in the process.
Yeah, that's what I had seen before, is it really gives you a feasibility perspective from looking at all these different avenues that obviously I'm not thinking of right now. I worked in the past with Nebraska Department of Economic Development, and so I've seen some of the bigger projects. Mine's not going to be that big, so anyhow. But it will involve a few extra people to help with, so there was going to be some employment. It's not going to be huge. There was an example they gave years ago of what a book, either 100 or 200 jobs, means to a city of 100 or 200,000. The impact of adding 5 people to a community, 5 jobs in a community of 500 has twice the impact. So that was kind of one of their standards or guides that they used to use.
Absolutely. And I think if you're finding a niche out there that isn't being already met, or if it is, you're finding a way to do it better or offer something different, I think that's going to be the key to the entire thing.
I don't know if it'll be better or reinvent the wheel or anything. I think there's a place in the market for it. That's what I'm trying to find out, I guess.
And starting the process of putting a business plan together at least will focus your energies on finding whether this is going to work or not. So, yeah, sure. Give SCORE a call. You can work with GROW Nebraska. You can work with the Nebraska Business Development Center. The important thing that I want to leave you all with is that at least there are resources out there. A lot of them are free and low cost. So if you want to say, well, how much does it cost to get a 1-hour session with a mentor at SCORE to sit down and discuss my plan, that's free as many times as you want to go.
Cool.
Any other questions before we wrap it up?
I don't think I have anything.
Awesome.
Heidi, anything else from you?
I think that's about it. I want to say thank you, Michael, for being our presenter this month. Lots of good information. And if anybody would like to hear the presentation again, we will be putting it up on YouTube, and I'll be emailing you all the link. Next month, if you're interested, our third Thursday training is going to be on shipping solutions. So if any part of your business deals with e-commerce and you need to ship things, we're going to have Christy Funky from the United States Postal Service teaching us some tips and tricks. And I think that's about it. So thank you, everyone, for attending. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Heidi. Very informative.